Hi folks, Greg Marchand here from AAT Incorporated. We at AAT are extremely proud to bring you this valuable DVD titled Service Management Made Simple. Whether you are an experienced shop owner or someone exploring the idea of owning your own repair shop for the first time, you will find something to benefit you in this video. The DVD complements our book by the same title, Service Management Made Simple, as well as our Business Management Seminar Series. This DVD is a collection of best practices employed by other repair shops just like yours throughout the automotive industry. We've organized it in short sections so that you can easily share with your employees the concepts and ideas that you find most valuable. Take from the video what you can and leave the rest. By employing even one of these best practices, you will increase your profitability, productivity, and customer satisfaction, as well as make your job a little more enjoyable. We encourage you to explore new ideas, to continually challenge yourself, and to never stop learning. Thank you for watching. Hi folks, Greg Marchand here from AAT Incorporated. We at AAT are extremely proud to bring you this valuable DVD titled Service Management Made Simple. Whether you are an experienced shop owner or someone exploring the idea of owning your very first repair shop, you will find something to benefit you within this video. The DVD complements our book by the same title, Service Management Made Simple, as well as our Business Management Seminar Series. This DVD is a collection of best practices employed by other repair shops just like yours throughout the automotive industry. We've organized it in short sections so that you can easily share with your employees the concepts and ideas that you find to be most valuable. Take from the video what you can and leave the rest. By employing even one of these best practices, you will increase your profitability, productivity, and customer satisfaction, as well as make your job a little more enjoyable. We encourage you to explore new ideas, to continually challenge yourself, and to never stop learning. Thank you for watching. Okay, so let's talk about what the individual customer means to your repair shop or your organization as a manager or a business owner. There are a lot of numbers out there associated with customers and what their value is over the course of their lifetime. I've seen everything from $50,000 over the course of their lifetime to they're worth $250,000 each to my organization over the course of their lifetime. I'm challenged with the fact that you can back into any one of these numbers and that's fine, but I can't equate when you come walking through my door, $50,000 with you, the person. I don't see a stack of money with 2 feet coming walking through my door. I don't even know what $50,000 looks like in one place at one time. So I prefer to look at it like this. Let's say your organization closes, on average, 10 repair orders each day. On average, 10 ROs a day. And on each one of those repair orders, you've got billed, on average, 1.5 hours of customer labor sales. We're going to ignore parts gross, all the other incremental costs on that invoice. We're just going to focus on what you've billed for customer labor. So 10 repair orders a day, 1.5 hours average per repair order. Let's say you charge $80 an hour is your labor rate, and that's probably a reasonable average for most parts of the country. And let's say that your shop or your organization is open 50 weeks a year and 5 days a week. I know you may be open more than that, but 50 weeks a year, 5 days a week. If you crunch the math, you'll learn that you will make $300,000 by the end of the year just billing an hour and a half per RO at $80 an hour. $300,000 in customer labor sales. Now, what if I were to challenge you and your organization to increase that average of 1.5 hours per repair order to 2 hours per repair order? Increase your average customer labor sales by a half hour per repair order. Could you do it? Most people, when I put this forth in class, their knee-jerk reaction is, yeah, I could do that. It's easy for many organizations, and they've got a dozen different ideas on how they would do it. But what does it do for your organization? If we were to increase just each RO by 0.5 hours, what does it do? Well, you math whizzes have already figured it out. 0.5 is 1/3 of that hour and a half. You would increase your profit at the end of the year by $100,000. Instead of $300,000 in customer labor sales, you will have built $400,000 in customer labor sales. Now that would look good on anybody's books. So let's talk about how you can increase customer labor sales real easy without spending any money and while increasing your customer satisfaction. Okay, so before we talk about increasing customer labor sales, let's discuss a common industry financial term called effective labor rate, or ELR. Your posted labor rate of $80 an hour may or may not be what you're actually collecting or bringing in labor from your customers. Here's why. If you bill an oil change at a half-hour labor and you charge $40 labor, plus the oil, plus the oil pan gasket, plus the oil filter, etc., all of a sudden you've got an oil change that may not be priced competitively. So oftentimes vehicle services like this are billed at a lower hourly rate than your posted labor rate. That means that your effective labor rate is actually less than your posted labor rate. So where does effective labor rate come from then? How do we calculate that? Relatively easy. For any given period of time, whether it's 1 week, 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year, doesn't matter. For any given period of time, you take your total customer labor sales in dollars and divide it by the total number of hours billed for that same period of time. So customer labor sales divided by hours billed will give you the actual effective labor rate, or ELR. What should it be? Well, in the perfect world, we would like our ELR, effective labor rate, to be equal to our posted labor rate. In the real world, that doesn't happen, of course, because of discounts, whether it's marketing discounts or this oil change scenario I gave you. You want your effective labor rate to be as close to your posted labor rate as possible. And in general, you should get within 85 to 90% of that posted labor rate. The closer to 100%, the better you're doing. Okay? Effective labor rate, or ELR, customer labor sales divided by total billed hours. Get it as close to 100% of your posted labor rate as you can, and you'll be doing well. Okay, so before we discuss increasing customer labor sales, let's discuss a common industry term related to your posted labor rate, and that is effective labor rate, or ELR. Your effective labor rate is a more true measure of the actual labor money, labor dollars, that you're bringing into your organization. Here's why. Let's say you charge that $80 an hour for labor. That's your posted labor rate. And you were to bill an oil change at that $80 an hour. So for every half-hour oil change we do, you bill 0.5 of that 80, and you've got $40 labor plus the cost of the oil filter, the oil pan drain plug, and the oil. All of a sudden, you've got an oil change that is likely not competitive in your market. Therefore, many maintenance services like this get billed at a lower labor rate just to stay competitive. Well, that lowers the actual amount of labor that you're bringing into your organization. This is where effective labor rate comes in. Now, effective labor rate can be a measure of profitability for your organization. How do we calculate it? It's calculated by dividing customer labor sales for any given period of time, a week, a quarter, a year, by total number of billed hours for that same time period. So customer labor sales divided by billed hours gives you your effective labor rate. And this is an average of the amount of labor that you're actually bringing into your organization. Now, there's an age-old debate between service managers and business owners as to whether we should be monitoring the number of repair orders written by an organization or monitoring ELR. Well, let me put it in this context. What should your ELR be? In the perfect world, your ELR, your effective labor rate, should be 100% of your posted labor rate. Now, in reality, that doesn't work out because of discounting, whether it's a marketing discount you may offer or service discounts, etc. your ELR is rarely, if ever, 100% of your posted labor rate. You want it to be as close to 100% as you can get. If you're pushing 90% of your posted labor rate, you're doing pretty well. So now let's go back to this repair order count versus effective labor rate. Just because you've got a real high repair order count, let's say we increase the number of repair orders per day from 15 to 20. So we've got 5 additional repair orders for every day we're open. Some service managers and business owners will tell you, you know what, we increased the number of customers coming through our door, the number of repair orders that we wrote for those customers, and that equates to profit. But does it? What if I increased 5 oil changes a day? I haven't collected near the profit I would have if I increased 5 head gasket jobs a day. Therefore, repair order count does not necessarily equate to profitability. Repair order count is a number. It will drive up your hours, your billed hours, but it does not necessarily mean you're collecting 100% of your labor rate on every one of those repair orders. Therefore, I would suggest to you that your effective labor rate is a far better indication of growth and profitability than RO count. Certainly watch them both, but the closer you get effective labor rate to 100%, the more profitable you will be no matter the number of repair orders that you bring in a day. Okay, so before we discuss increasing customer labor sales, let's discuss a common industry analysis term called effective labor rate. An effective labor rate is a measure of profitability, and it's a truer measure of how many labor dollars you're actually bringing in. In other words, what you're actually charging the average of your customers in terms of labor. You see, if you have that $80 labor rate posted on your wall, that's your posted labor rate. If I come walking into your shop for an oil change, say, and you charge me a half an hour labor for the oil change, and you use your posted labor rate, that's $40 plus the price of the oil, the drain plug gasket, and the oil filter. Suddenly you've got an oil change that may not be competitively priced in your market. Therefore, your posted labor rate of $80 an hour is not actually what you're charging because you need to discount these services. Effective labor rate, or ELR, is what we use to measure the actual labor rate that you're charging. So think of effective labor rate as actual labor rate, if you will. Where does it come from? How do we calculate it? Well, we calculate it by taking total customer labor sales, labor you've billed your customers over any given period of time, whether it's a week, a month, a quarter, a year, doesn't matter. Total customer labor sales over a period of time divided by the total number of billed hours for that same period of time. In short, customer labor sales divided by billed hours will give you your effective labor rate. Effective labor rate takes into account any discounting you do, whether it's discounting labor rates for services, whether it's marketing incentive, 10 or 20% off, whatever you've got out there. Maybe it's a customer service person that's discounting just to be friendly to customers. Your effective labor rate will find this out for you. So what should effective labor rate be then? Well, in the perfect world, we want it to be 100% of our posted labor rate. In the real world, it's never going to be 100% because of this discounting that goes on that is necessary. The bottom line is you want ELR, effective labor rate, to be as close to your posted labor rate as possible, knowing it won't likely ever reach 100%. But if you're pushing 90% effective labor rate or higher, you're doing really well, and you're going to be real profitable. Now, here comes a little debate that we see in the industry. Many individuals want to discuss repair order count, or RO count, as a measure of business growth and profitability versus effective labor rate. I would put it to you like this. Just because my shop increases the number of repair orders we write per day by 3 repair orders every day, so at the end of the week we've got 15 more, doesn't mean that we've been any more profitable. What if every one of those repair orders we wrote, all 15 for the week, were all oil changes? and we were only charging $36 an hour for an oil change instead of the posted $80. Are we any more profitable? Maybe a little bit. But what if we're tracking effective labor rate and we increase the percent of actual posted labor rate that our ELR represents? Does that not represent more profitability? Just because we've got more repair orders doesn't necessarily mean we're more profitable. Yes, we may be bringing in more revenue, but at a lower effective labor rate than if we track effective labor rate while at the same time trying to increase our customer labor sales or repair order count. Does that make sense? Effective labor rate, customer labor sales divided by billed hours for any period of time, get as close to 100% as you can, and you will be profitable. Let's talk about increasing customer labor sales. Now, earlier I challenged you as to whether you thought you could increase that 1.5 hours per repair order in labor that you were charging to 2. And hopefully your initial reaction was, yeah, I can do that. In many of the seminar groups that I conduct, I ask, do you think you can do that? And most of the individuals say, yeah, we can do that. And so the obvious question then becomes, how are you going to do it? And we have a good time answering that because invariably there's somebody in the back of the room that comes up with something kind of crazy. One guy one day says, I'm going to run a wiper blade special and I'm going to charge an extra half hour for every wiper blade I put on. Now, it's good for a chuckle, but in reality, there are 100 or 1,000 ways that we can increase customer labor sales per RO on average by that half hour. There are better ways than others to get it done. I would suggest to you that building customer relationships is by far the easiest and most effective way of getting that increase of a half hour per repair order that equates to $100,000 a year in profits. So let's talk about how we build the relationship with the customer. It's all about customer satisfaction, right? Because customer satisfaction leads to customer retention. And customer retention is keeping the customers that we have. We want them coming back to us. Far less expensive than going out and trying to get new ones, right? How do you get to higher levels of customer satisfaction? Because satisfied customers bring in 2 to 3 referrals every year, even more if they're highly satisfied. They are easier to sell to. Think about why. And they make our jobs far easier. Think about why. Now, here's something that I call the customer satisfaction pyramid. At the base of the pyramid is an exceptional customer service experience. I'm not talking Disneyland for all of your customers. You don't have to have the biggest TV in your waiting room. You don't have to have the comfiest chairs in your waiting room. You don't have to have a McDonald's in your waiting room. I'm talking about an experience built for the individual customer, everyone that walks through your door. Add to that exceptional service experience, fixed right first time. I bring my car to you with a problem, it leaves fixed. That's fixed right first time. We'd all like that to happen more often, wouldn't we? So an exceptional customer service experience, add to it fixed right first time, and what do you create? You create trust. And the peak of that pyramid, or the pinnacle of the pyramid, is trust. We're trying to get to trust. Now here's the challenge with trust. Trust is earned, it's never assumed, and trust is fragile. You can spend 12 months, every service visit the customer makes to your shop, creating an exceptional service experience for them. And you do it, you accomplish it. And you can fix their vehicle right every single time, the first time. And you can get to trust. And yet in one fell swoop, because of something silly, that trust is violated and it's gone. So you've got to maintain the trust. But the service experience, combined with fixed right first time, will lead to trust. Trust will lead to a satisfied customer. Satisfied customers give us referrals. Satisfied customers are easier to sell to. Well, why? In every organization, and I'm willing to bet somebody in your store yesterday, today, or tomorrow will walk into your service counter, right? Walk up to your counter, and they're going to take their keys, and they're going to hand you the keys, and a pile of money, I hope, hand you the keys, set it on the counter, and say, we'll see you at 5 o'clock. They'll walk out the door. Your technician will perform whatever service they came in for, and in the process of that, may identify the brake pads are getting low, that the vehicle needs an alignment, they're due for an oil change, tire rotation, whatnot. And what's the customer's answer going to be if you call them and say, Mr. Smith, we noticed while we were performing your service that your tires are due for rotation? More than likely, they're going to say, go ahead and do it. That's because of trust. We want more of our customers to trust us. An exceptional service experience plus fixed right first time equals trust. Trust equals higher profitability. Trust equals an easier workday. Trust equals an easier sell. And it equals that additional half hour in customer labor sales per repair order, which equals $100,000 per year on your bottom line. Think about it.
Oh, great.
We've been talking about creating satisfied customers, and we discussed the customer satisfaction pyramid. The base of that pyramid is, of course, creating an exceptional service experience. In the next DVD, we'll talk about some of the more specific points about creating that exceptional service experience. But what I want to talk about here in this DVD is customer expectations. I hear a lot in this industry that customer expectations are getting higher and higher every year, and somebody invariably tells me that they're unreasonable. Well, let's talk about what customers do expect. And I would suggest to you that what they do expect is just as important as what they don't expect. But what do your customers expect when they walk through the door? They expect value for their money, certainly, because money's the thing that comes to everybody's mind, I think. But I think more importantly than that, they expect to be listened to. They expect to have their concerns addressed. And they expect the vehicle to be fixed right the first time. Your job as a shop manager or shop owner is to help your employees, your associates, manage those customer expectations. Now, I ask the groups that we do training with, what do you think the number one reason customers hate coming to us? There's a news flash, huh? Customers hate having their cars serviced. What do you think's the number one reason why they strongly dislike having their cars serviced? The number one answer I get is because of money, because we're going to separate them from money. Really, in reality, the number one reason is it's a significant inconvenience in their life. Think about this. Do you have kids? Do you know somebody that has kids? I've got 3 kids at home. The 2 boys had to be at school this morning. The little one had to be at daycare. My wife had to be at work. And I was here filming this. Where does having my vehicle worked on fit into all of that? Well, I'm not the exception, and I'm guessing that you're not the exception either. You see, we go to work every day in a regular environment that is regular to us. It's normal to us. We can show up, we can have a repair order written on our vehicle, we can have whatever performed on our vehicle we need to on most days. Customers don't have that luxury. Customers have to rearrange their schedule just to get their vehicle to you. That's the number one reason they dislike coming to us for service. Now, when they do show up, and you've got to create that exceptional service experience, think about what they expect. They expect to be listened to. In my time as a technical specialist for a major automotive manufacturer, part of my job was representing this manufacturer in lemon law. And what I learned over 15 years of doing this work was that 90% of the customers we went to court with felt they hadn't been listened to. And they would literally sit there and they'd say to me, I never would have filed this paperwork if somebody had just listened to me. Remember that. That's an important lesson. Most customers either weren't or felt they weren't being listened to. We'll talk more about that in the next DVD. Customers expect good value for their money. In short, we all expect to get what we pay for, right? So they expect value for their money. And that goes along with fixed right first time. Now, what they don't expect is just as important as what they do expect. What do you suppose they don't expect? Well, let me tell you a quick story. I take my vehicle in for an oil change one day. I drive a half an hour to the shop. I wait an hour and a half for whatever reason. I drive a half an hour home, I open up the back door, and I discover mud on the headliner, the rear seat, and the rear carpet. I didn't expect that. Do you think I've gone back? No. Do you think I even called? No, I didn't. What I didn't expect was just as important as what I did expect. Customers don't expect to return to the shop more than once for repair work. They don't expect radios messed with, fingerprints on the dash, seats moved. And they don't expect to not receive value for their money. Think about it like this. Maybe you've bought a TV recently. Maybe you bought a DVD recently. Maybe you bought a fancy dinner recently. And you spent, let's just say for argument's sake, $400 on whatever this product was. Whether you ate it, whether you watched it, whether you listened to it, you knew what you got for your money, didn't you? Now take the same $400 and put it in your car. Buy a couple of new tires with it. Buy an alignment and a tune-up with it. And driving home, what does the customer notice? Not a whole lot. You see, their perception is that they gave you a whole pile of money and they may or may not have felt like they ever got anything for it. Keep their expectations in mind. At least ensure that they feel listened to. Ensure that they receive value and perceive value for their money. Ensure that you fix their vehicle right the first time. And don't give them what they don't expect. And you'll be all set. You'll be well on your way to creating that exceptional service experience, the base of that pyramid. More to follow. Keeping with the theme of attempting to build trust and the customer satisfaction pyramid that we've been talking about, I'd like to discuss briefly selling, service counter selling specifically. Customers, when they come into your organization, they've got oftentimes preconceived notions, and many times I don't need to explain to you what they are. We all know what people say about our business, and they feel when they walk through the door that they're going to get ripped off, that the vehicle's not going to get fixed right first time, etc., etc. And we have to overcome that. Now, you didn't create that, I didn't create that. That was an industry over a long period of time that created that. That's just something that we need to deal with. So let's talk about what selling is, because the bottom line is we have to sell. That's our business. We're in business to make money, and we're in business to take care of our customers. Part of taking care of customers is identifying what their vehicle needs. Let's face it, who do customers rely on to let them know what's going on with their vehicle? It's you, right? It's the service centers, because they don't know that much about their cars most of the time. So they're expecting us to bring knowledge to the table regarding the state of their vehicle, and some of them are expecting us to make stuff up or to be a little too aggressive with what their vehicle needs. How do we get past all of that? What tools do you have available short of awesome sales training for all of your counter associates? Well, I would suggest to you this. It goes right back to customer labor sales. How did we say you increase customer labor sales? Because that sales word's in there, right? And we said relationship building. Build a relationship. Identify what your customers' needs are. What are their expectations? Give your counter associates training in identifying customer types. Give them training in identifying the people that walk through your door so they recognize what that customer needs. Then train them to give that customer knowledge. You see, knowledge is power. Why do you suppose most customers feel so highly anxious when they walk up to your service counter? Could it be because they feel really out of control? If they, A, don't know a whole lot about their car, and B, may or may not trust you right now, and C, have to be there, why do they come to you? They come to you because they can't do it themselves. And if they don't have it done, they're walking or they're riding their bike. So they need you. And that combination of need, lack of knowledge, and industry reputation creates a real high level of anxiety. Think about that. How do you bring that anxiety level down? Oftentimes, it's knowledge. Provide knowledge to them. How can you do that? There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. There's a lot of tools in the market that we'll talk about in just a little bit. to provide that knowledge to your customers. But think about what their expectations are. Think about what anxieties they're coming through your door with, and think about how you can work around those. But the bottom line is it's about building relationships with your customer. 99% of selling is building relationships. When we come back, we'll talk further about building those relationships. Okay, so let's talk about what I consider to be your number one sales tool, or maybe more appropriately, your number one relationship building tool for your customer, and that is a multi-point inspection form. Now, I know some of you just recoiled at the very thought of a multi-point inspection form, or what I call an MPI. The reason many of us recoil when we think about multi-point inspection forms is that, we had jobs at some point that we didn't get paid to do them, or we had a service writer that didn't know how to use it or couldn't sell off of it, etc., and they got a bad reputation. But let's talk about what the intent of these MPIs really is. And it goes back to what I mentioned in the last section about what customers know and understand about their vehicle. In reality, it's very little. And granted, it runs on a scale, and some know more than others. But big picture, they know very little about their vehicle and the condition of their vehicle. Now, this industry reputation thing we mentioned too plays into this. If I show up at your shop at 120,000 miles and you pull out a multi-point inspection form and you go through my car and say you're really diligent about it, and you hand it to the service writer, and the service writer presents it over the counter to me, and I discover I need $4,000 worth of work on my vehicle. Now I'm recoiling, right? Now I'm walking in there going, yeah, I knew it. You confirm my worst fears. You are a ripoff. You're trying to pull one over on me, etc., etc. Well, how did that happen? That happened because nobody used that MPI with me the entire history of my vehicle. If I, as a customer, was used to somebody, every time I brought my vehicle into them, filling out the multi-point inspection form, whether I needed anything or not, I would eventually come to realize it as a report card on my vehicle. So get yourself a multi-point inspection form and use it for every single customer, every single visit. Now, there's some rules to using them, okay? And one of those rules is ask the customer. Explain that it's a free 52-point or whatever it is, whatever you want to develop is fine, a free inspection that you perform on every vehicle as a courtesy to your customers to inform them of the condition of their vehicle. And it is just as important to do this on the vehicles that don't need anything, the vehicles that you're not going to upsell a single thing on, as it is those vehicles that need an alignment, a tie rod, a steering rack, and 4 tires. The idea is to get your customer used to looking at these. Get your customer used to seeing it as a report card. So every time the customer walks up to conduct that transaction with you during write-up, have a form available and say, we offer a free, emphasize free, people like free stuff, free 52-point inspection. It just, here's the points we go through. It gives you an idea of the state of your vehicle. We'll let you know if it needs anything. We'll let you know if it doesn't need anything. And the more times you present a form like that to me that doesn't need anything, what's the message it's sending? It's sending me the message that I can trust you. Aren't we after trust? We're after trust, right? And if you hand me a multi-point inspection form and say, sir, your vehicle doesn't need anything, you are good to go, I'm going to walk out of there going, hey, cool. Okay? So think about it. It's a relationship building tool. Now, it does more than that for you. Very, very important sales tool on a number of levels. All right? Let's first talk about organizing, prioritizing the work that a vehicle does need. So say you fill out that multi-point inspection form. It goes out to the technician. They do a very diligent job out in the repair shop, looking the vehicle over, determining what it needs, and getting prices for the counter associate to present the customer. You bring it out. It needs $2,000 worth of work. The customer goes, oh no, I can't do that today. I've got no money. Well, part of the reason that money plays into these transactions is it's an unexpected expense. The customer came to you expecting to spend $34.95 for an oil change. They said, yeah, it'd be great if you did that 52-point inspection. You do it, and all of a sudden you say, well, you need $2,000 worth of work. Now, I'm taken aback. I didn't budget for that. Help your customer out. Build the relationship. Okay, sir, ma'am, here's what I would recommend. Here are the things that are really important, and prioritize those. Break those out. By prioritizing and breaking those out of the overall list, you do two things. First of all, you're helping the customer, and they're recognizing that you're helping them. You're telling them what's really important, what's kind of sort of important, and what they can put off for a little while. It just narrowed the list of what they need to consider. Now, the really important thing. You can turn that form around and you can pass it across the counter to them, and you say, what would you like to have done? What did you just do by doing that? You just gave them the control now. Remember their anxiety was up here because they needed you? And if they didn't bring their car to you, something bad was going to happen, they were going to be hoofing it? Well, you just put the control back in their hands. You helped them. You let them know what their vehicle needed. You prioritized it for them. You handed it to them, and you said, you customer, you choose. You tell me what you'd like to do. Now, that not only makes them feel better and helps build a relationship, but the non-immediate things, the things that aren't safety related, they can now take that MPI, that multi-point inspection form, home with them, and they can budget for the next needed repair. And in this way, you continue to build the relationship. You also use that MPI as a retention tool. Say I need three things. I bring my car in for an oil change. You do a great job informing me of the multi-point inspection you're going to do. Your technician is diligent, and they come out and they say, sir, you need a tie rod end, 4 tires, and an alignment. And I say, ooh, I can't do that today. I don't have the money. And you prioritize it. You break it out for me. And you say, okay, well, look, the tie rod's really bad. That's a safety issue. That breaks, bad things happen. The tires, they're not horrible. You can get away with driving it for another few weeks if money's an issue or if time is an issue. And then the alignment, you're going to want to do that with the tires. And I say, okay, so now I know A, what's really, really important, and B, what can wait a little bit. I say, go ahead and do the tie rod. Now, when you're closing out my invoice, you hand me that invoice and you say, sir, would you like to make an appointment to have those tires put on and your alignment performed? When would you like to do that? You pre-schedule the appointment. And we'll talk about appointment scheduling in a little bit. But you pre-schedule the appointment based on that multi-point inspection form. What does that do? That keeps me with you. It keeps me from driving down the road next Friday with an extra $1,000 in my pocket, for whatever reason, and going, hey, Joe's Auto's open. I'm going to go over there because I need tires. If I had an appointment at your shop, based on our conversation about the multi-point inspection form, I am far more likely to return to your shop and have that work done. So multi-point inspection forms are very, very, very important. They build a relationship with the customer, they allow the customer to budget for needed repairs, and they allow you to prioritize, therefore help the customer with future needs. One other point on multi-point inspections before we move on. Big point. Why do you, maybe, and why do technicians strongly dislike multi-point inspection forms? Well, here's what I see happen. Service writer at the counter here does a phenomenal job explaining what the multi-point inspection form is. Customer says, yep, go ahead and do it. It goes out to the shop. Technician does a phenomenal job. They're diligent about it. They inspect the brakes. They inspect the tires. They go over the vehicle with a fine-tooth comb. They document everything really, really well. Technician brings it back to the service counter. That service writer now takes it over to the customer. Where'd the technician go? Technician went back out in the shop, do their job, right? They're gone. Has the conversation with the customer. Service writer talks to the customer. Customer says, can't do it right now. Don't have time, don't have money, whatever it is. Service writer does an awesome job pre-scheduling the appointment. Well, okay, Mrs. Smith, when would you like to have it done? Hey, next Friday's great. Okay, perfect. Mrs. Smith takes her car and leaves. And or the service writer goes out in the shop and says, put the wheels back on it, she can't do it now. And Mrs. Smith takes the car and leaves. What's the technician thinking? Technician's thinking the service writer can't do his or her job. What was the point in me filling out that MPI? There was no point in it. I got nothing from it. What they don't know is that they will get something from it because that appointment was scheduled for a week from now. What I strongly encourage that you ask your associates to do, all of your counter people do, is take that MPI after that customer leaves or 10 minutes later, whenever, and go back out to the technician and say, hey, John, thank you very much. You did an awesome job. Mrs. Smith made an appointment for next week. I'll make sure you get the work. That sends the message to John that the counter associate, your service writer, assistant service manager, whoever it is, did their job. And they did their job well. And the customer is coming back and they are going to get the money off that MPI. Think about getting MPIs and using MPIs. Use them properly if you don't already. More to follow.